What is going on, everybody? How is it going? Starting live. People are gonna maybe trickle in. People may not trickle in. Either way, the intent of this live is to explain a couple different things. One of them is the structuring of your business. When I talk structuring for your business, I'm talking about, um, you know, how do you structure it as in terms of different sections of your business? So you can call them pillars, you can call them quadrants, you can call them whatever you want, but essentially it breaks down to four primary sections, with a fifth being, um, one kind of internal to you, not really operations related, but it's something that's important. And if you're in here right now, or you're rewatching this after it's already done being live, then guess what? You're doing that fifth one, and that's networking and education. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some Q&A. We're going to break down what these different four sections are. And then after we break those down, we're going to jump into basically what is list stacking. And then after we talk about list stacking, we're going to talk about REISift, which is a web application that I am building, which does list stacking, but it also does the data cleaning that I talk about in some of my other YouTube videos. And if I can share my screen, I don't know if I can from this or not. I think I can, which is pretty sweet. I'm going to show you what I mean by that on my other screen here. I'll kind of share my screen and we'll talk a little bit about what that is, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let me just prepare my screen over here real quick. Who is this? Hope all is well. I never got that list back. The one I sent a few weeks ago. Just wanted to catch up with you on that. Okay, noted. I forgot about that, to be honest. All right, let me close out this. Let me go to Google Drive. Close out that. Let me bring up myself here and make sure everything is going good there. If you're watching, please go ahead and say something in the chat or something. I'm not really sure how to see if there's anybody in here or not. Don't know how that works. So can't really say hi or bye to anybody unless you let me know that you're in here. So go ahead and comment, where you're from, what you're doing, and all that good stuff. I'm sure there's not too many because my channel's not very big, but doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how big you are. As long as there's one person watching, I'm gonna treat it just the same. So I just gotta get Google Drive open here so I can prepare for once we get to that point. Feel free to ask questions at any time. I will answer them as they come in, and we will essentially come out of this with a lot of value, hopefully. Let's get to Google Drive. It takes forever to load. Hopefully everyone's having a wonderful Friday, or had a wonderful Friday. It is the end of Friday, 9 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and actually put on Instagram right now. Live. Let them know. Let's see if I can do this. What's going on, everybody? I'm currently live on YouTube. If you want to head over there, we're going to be talking about structuring a business. We're going to, the four quadrants that I talk about. We're going to be talking about list stacking, and we're going to cover briefly on REISift. So if you're not busy, head over to my YouTube channel, links in my bio, and check out the live that's going on right now. And I will answer questions, Q&A, and all that good stuff. What's going on, everybody? All right. Make sure that's out. That way, maybe people trickle in from there. Make sure as many people can get this as possible. I like to answer questions. It's kind of like, I don't know, I like to do it. So let me pull up my list, and then we'll be good there. I should have already had this pulled up. I don't know why I didn't, but let me get, let's just do an equity list as an example, and I'll break down kind of what that looks like, and we'll kind of go from there. Let me find one that's good. Let's see. Let's do Let's open up 2 of them. We're going to open up one, and then we're going to open up this one. All right, so I'm going to probably pull that board over, and I got the hiccups all of a sudden. I'm going to pull that board over, and we're going to use that as an example, or to break things down. Rather, not an example. All right, so this looks like this list is cleaned and got missing data. We got some missing data in here because that's my biggest thing I want to show you guys. Google Sheets loads so slow if you're using anything else. All right, cool. So that's all in here. So I will bring up that when I have the time. So let's go ahead and jump into the quadrants. Like I said, if you're in here chilling out, please feel free to go ahead and comment below, ask any questions as I'm going through this. If I want to dig any deeper, we're going to go ahead and knock it out. Let me find a color. Let me move this over here. Let's try and aim this a little bit higher. Maybe like that. Maybe we'll turn this here and we'll turn this up. If you're in here and you can still hear me, let me know. I'm going to pull this over here. Maybe that'll work. And we shut this. And lock that door so no one barges in the middle of us got this going on. All right. So when I start talking, hopefully that camera doesn't keep zooming in and out because that's going to be really annoying for you guys. When I'm talking about the way of structuring your business as a wholesaler, okay, and really this is across any sort of business that you're going to be starting, you have 4 primary quadrants, okay? Administrative, there's all your administrative tasks. Marketing, which is creating opportunities. Then you have acquisitions, which is actually acquiring those opportunities into your business. Then you have dispositions, and dispositions is disposing of that opportunity. So selling it to your cash buyers or selling it to yourself or whatever. It's important to remember that after you as a wholesaler, you might dispose of a property and wholesale it to yourself, and then it starts a whole nother thing, okay? So let's break this down on the board here. I'm trying to turn it on an angle. Hopefully you guys can still see it. That way we don't have to worry about me being all up, in front of the camera. So remember, you have acquisitions, which I'm going to just abbreviate for AQ, okay? You have dispositions, which I'm just going to do DISP, okay? You have admin, which is just going to be ADMI for now, apparently. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that properly. I just realized on my screen, it's backwards. I don't know if it's backwards for you, which would suck. Hopefully it's not. Acquisitions, dispositions, administrative, and marketing. Which we're going to do mark. We're just going to create some lines under these. Then we're going to talk about individually for acquisitions, dispositions, marketing, and administrative, what type of items might be in there, okay? We're going to start with administrative because really what this is going to do is this is going to flow this direction, okay? And I might be able to, I don't know, put some arrows here to simulate that. This goes like so. All right, so we're flowing this direction from the bottom right corner around, okay? So administrative tasks. Some of the examples of some administrative tasks that you might have inside your business are, let's just say, onboarding somebody. That's an onboarding task. That's administrative. Pulling title work, administrative. And by pulling title work, I mean basically sending all that information to the title company. Administrative is essentially, acquisitions, dispositions, marketing. It is the, foundation and the paper processing of all 3 of these. Okay, so there's some that are individualized just for administrative, but then you also have, acquisition tasks that are administrative. So if you're building out a standard operating procedure, what's going to happen is you're going to have, okay, administrative person do this, send to acquisitions, acquisitions send back, do this, and they're going to kind of feed back and forth to each other. And that SOP, the standard operating procedure, is going to, outline that. Send to this person in acquisitions. Acquisitions person would have their own SOP that, fits that guidelines, and then send back over to administrative to finish that up. And that is the life cycle of a lead or a prospect or whatever. So administrative, you're talking, any admin tasks, which it sounds pretty obvious. So any admin tasks, that's also going to include onboarding. That's going to include like Facebook and Craigslist and a lot of those like marketing admin tasks. Okay. But remembering that that's still a marketing task, but it's a little bit administrative. Okay. So it's an admin task, so it would be documented as such. But, under marketing, the actual marketing piece is cold calling, mail, and so on. But there's administrative tasks that feed into that. So just know anything that deals with paper or processing of anything, generally, you're going to be under administrative. For marketing, that's talking about your cold calling. It's talking about your mail. That's talking about your driving for dollars. That's talking about, let's see, what else you got there? Cold calling, mail, driving for dollars, Facebook ads. And the list goes on. So, you could have whatever marketing channels that you have, Craigslist posts, and so on. It's all underneath of marketing. Something to remember is that, even though you're creating a marketing side, right, you're not necessarily, you would only put underneath your marketing side the stuff that you're actually doing, okay? You're not going to put under here every single marketing strategy. This is just to outline what you're doing in your business. It's not to structure it to say this is everything that, it's kind of like a cornerstone to your training and your business model, but it's not necessarily all inclusive. Like your cold calling, like I said, you're going to have tasks in administrative, you're going to have tasks in acquisitions for cold calling, and so on. This is just so that on paper you can see, okay, this is everything that I have going on under marketing, and it's these tasks. Now, when you do your training, you can train for cold calling, and it's going to outline and like I said, push those tasks over to these individual sections of your business. So that's marketing. Acquisitions. Acquisitions is going to be everywhere from creating an opportunity, I'm just going to say creating op because I don't feel like spelling out opportunity. So creating opportunity until contract. Okay. So the acquisitions part of the deal is once you've created a bunch of opportunities, okay, with your marketing, within acquisitions you have prospecting. Okay, so you have prospecting. What I mean by prospecting is the actual like your marketing side, you're going to be creating opportunities, and opportunities are going to come in. Once those opportunities come in, or once you get on a phone with somebody, it's no longer marketing. It's now acquisitions, and now you have a prospect or a lead, and you're working to acquire that lead. Okay, once that contract is signed, it now pushes over, and now you're in disposition. So if you watch my life cycle of contracts, then you'll understand the life cycle of what that contract would be. Once you send that contract over to Mr. Moneybags, you've officially finished the dispositions process. But that process between the contract signing and getting it to Mr. Moneybags, that there is the kind of the middle stages here in acquisitions and passing over to dispositions. So acquisitions is going to be everything that you have from the point of, that's lead management, that's all those things. Some of that lead management ties into the administrative, okay? Your lead manager, are they acquisitions really, or are they more of administrative? For me, in my business model, a lead manager is going to be under administrative because they're performing a administrative task, but they're assisting the acquisitions team. Okay. Now, the acquisitions manager or someone else might be doing some lead management and stuff like that. But an acquisitions manager, for example, once they get something under contract, they're going to send that to the lead manager or whoever it is, to send and handle that lead with the title company and so on. So what you could consider is, if you were to block off, administrative, your acquisitions and your dispositions is all part of your, your operations. That's what creates, along with, some of marketing, that's what actually makes your company operate. So that's why it's called operations. Okay. Now for dispositions, like I said, it's from the point that you get something under contract, it's now going to be under dispositions. In my company, a lot of times, what I do is I have the acquisitions manager also play the role as a dispositions, because I like the one point of contact from the point that a lead is, under working through the getting to the contract point and then also going to a buyer. I find it easier that way. I don't put it all on the acquisitions manager. The marketing side of it is being done by my remote worker, and what she does is she sets up all the administrative parts of the dispositions. That's talking about the MailChimp, the on-carrot stuff, the text message blast, all that stuff. Okay, I'm not going to dig into each of one of these and what my current business model is in every one of these and how to do that. I just want you guys to see what it is and what each of these roles are, so that you could better plan and you can take your current business or what you currently have going on or what you're planning on doing, and you can structure this out on a piece of paper, like people are doing, and I'm sharing it on my Instagram, showing people doing this tactic. So disposition is going to be just that. Once it gets under contract, that's going to be the contacting and actually pass over to buyer. The dispositions process should be really simple, streamlined, and it should be fairly automated. You can create outbound, inbound. You can currently in our business, we do voicemail drops, we do text message blasts, we do email, and then we also call people individually, because we update our buyers' basically portfolio with us, and we know what everybody's looking for. So we call through our buyers list and we try and figure out who's looking for what, so that we know better how to quickly get rid of that contract. However, with a lot of our properties, we do blast out to any recent cash buyers. We update our cash buyers list all the time in our local market, builders and things like that, because we want to be able to also bring in new people into our system, as well as the people that are already in there, because we don't want to just rely on our current buyers, because something could happen and then we don't want to end up failing because we can't rely on our buyers. So that is more or less the four pillars, okay, or the quadrants, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't really matter. Those are your departments of your business. Now, like I said, what I have under administrative might be different than you. Same thing with marketing. It's the concept of the actual structure of making sure you structure your business that way. So my training is structured that way. My SOPs are structured that way. They all have places to go, and they all reference back to one another for these different tasks. But overall, you would have like an acquisitions manager, you would have, potentially a dispositions manager, you would have someone that's in charge of marketing, and someone who is your administrative assistant that's handling all the admin stuff. Sometimes these are one and the same. Like in my business, my administrative is also my marketing, as far as handling, getting everything where it needs to be. And then you could have, depending on where you're at in your business, you could have an operations manager that is operating to make sure this section, those three quadrants are running smoothly, make sure all the ops are getting done and handled as required. Okay. So there is the quadrants. A lot of people have been asking me about them. A lot of people have wondered how I have my business structured, and that's how it is. It's broken down into that. Now, digging in a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about like lead flow and list stacking. So let's see if I can get this off here real quick. Make sure there's no questions or anything. Make sure I'm not leaving anybody out, even though I don't see any here. Let's just make sure. I don't really know how to make sure. I see there's a chat system here, but I don't see. Here, I'll just grab one of these and pull one of these over. Make sure we're doing good. Okay, so there's people in here, but I'm not seeing any chat on the other side. What up, Tony McCrae? I see you subscribed. I don't know if you're in here or not, but I'm gonna say hi. Let's see. People in here. Oh my gosh. I just heard myself yelling. See, there is people in here. I don't understand why I'm not seeing those chats. Hold on a second. Why can't I see that on my end? What's up, JG? What up, Team ADOT? What up, Tavian? We see it fine. What up, Filler? I don't know why I can't see that. Let me just close this out and reopen the chat box. Weird. Maybe that's just for internally. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just leave this up. That's dumb. I wish I would have known that you guys were saying something so I could have talked to you. My apologies. I'm just going to leave this up on this screen here so that I can see. Because it's live, it'll actually re-record. It'll actually push it over into my actual feed, so you don't have to worry about that. But since I see there's some people in here, before I move on to the list stacking and how to do that effectively, let's answer some questions. If there is any, I want to make sure that, as we move further, we don't have anybody missing out on anything. So I'm going to sit down real quick and see if there's any way that we can go ahead and pull this down, get any questions answered. I really wish I could. You would think that in the YouTube dashboard, it would have showed people saying stuff. But what do we got? Any questions for anybody that's in here right now? Looks like we got 12 people watching, which is pretty cool. So that's 12 people's, questions that could ask. You can't really not have a question. So, is there anything like that I can help you with as far as the structuring of your business is concerned before we move over into list stacking? Let's see. Okay, so disposition side only handle passing over to the buyer. So yes, as soon as the contract hits, as soon as you have a property under contract, what's going to happen is that's going to pass over to the disposition side. So there's going to be like a middle person, like a liaison, which is most likely going to be your administrative assistant. And once you get something on a contract, that's going to update in Podio, or that's going to be notified in Slack, or whatever you have as that kind of like communication tool. And then whoever's in charge of dispositions is then going to take over and run the disposition campaigns. What I do so that I can have be as lean as possible is my administrative assistant is also my marketer, and in addition, she handles all of the disposition administrative tasks, so setting everything up. So as soon as we get something on a contract, she's notified. She knows exactly where to go inside of our Google Drive or inside of Podio and get the information needed through our training to create the MailChimp campaigns and all that stuff. And then once they're staged and they're ready to go, I do a proof check on them, or my acquisitions manager does a proof check on those, and then they get sent out. And then inbound is where the acquisition manager, again, she's also the dispositions, and she'll answer in inbound phone calls, or I'll answer inbound phone calls from our buyers to go ahead and get that contract assigned over. That's all disposition features, and I'll show you guys kind of a little bit of what my site looks like in a second, and a little bit like at the end. on how I have that training set up. All right, let's see. At what point do you hire people to delegate these pillars? So what's going to happen is you're going to hire people for the pillars whenever you're ready. So whenever you're ready to fire yourself from those, you should be hiring somebody. So I recommend you start with, the administrative tasks, the marketing type stuff, that, the stuff that's required to get the point to where you're going to start doing your marketing campaigns. All of that should be hired out first, and then kind of your next hire should be a lead manager, or if your acquisitions manager is going to do lead management, depending on how you have things set up with list stacking or whatever your marketing channel is, you can hire one of those next. Yes, I apologize if I missed, but what are the tools you use to do dispo? Currently for dispositions, we do text message blasting, we do RVM, we do cold calling. Everything that we use for acquisitions, we use in dispositions for buyers because they're really no different. Except for the mail part, we don't have buyers, we don't have sellers inside of, everything we do in acquisitions, we do in dispositions because buyers and sellers are the same, except for MailChimp. MailChimp we don't use on the seller side because we don't have, a list. But we use Carrot Site for our landing pages now. We don't use landing pages inside of MailChimp. The only thing we do with MailChimp is send out our link to our Carrot Site for the property. So far, this is ahead of where I'm at in my business. I'm just soaking up knowledge. You could be ahead, but this could be ahead of your business, but really it's not, because you're doing something in these categories. Okay. And if you're doing something in these categories, when it's 11 o'clock at night, you should be recording what you know how to do and structuring it out accordingly. Okay. What else we got? Any other questions about the kind of quadrants or pillars before we move on to what list stacking is and why it's important? On my screen, the video is kind of like blurry. Is it blurry on your side? Any questions? You guys can ask any questions that revolve inside of any of those pillars. Or outside of the pillars. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm going to answer any question that comes across. What do you mean by leave a list? Prospecting is basically prospecting is the point before it becomes a lead. So when you're sending out mail, that's a form of prospecting, but generally speaking, prospecting is when you're actively searching through something, kind of like, I'm trying to think of a relative thing, like gold miners, when they're sifting through dirt and they're trying to find traces of gold. That's prospecting for gold, right? They're trying to find where it is. And then once they find that little bit of piece, they consider that a good lead of dirt, and then they'll start digging for actual gold. It doesn't quite relate, I guess, to this, but yeah, prospecting is like when I'm cold calling, for example, I'm prospecting. Once someone shows interest in actually selling their home, they've now became a lead. For sure, JG. I will definitely show you where it ties in. I'm actually going to switch over to my screen, and we're going to go through how REISift ties into all of this. So what I mean is, when you have, let's say, a probate list, how long or how many times should I hit that list before I leave that list and dial another list? What do you recommend as a good distressed list to market to? So the distressed list is going to depend on your market. Because I do list stacking and that's a heavy part of my business, I get as many lists as I can to find out, how many properties are on all of those lists. And that's where I kind of focus a lot of my energy outside of our kind of shotgun approach marketing. So let me think of that first part. So we have a system for our cold calling where it might make more sense once we get to the REISift stuff. But essentially, you want to make sure that those leads are dead. So if it's a big list, once you stop getting leads from it is really realistically when you should stop using it and maybe refresh it. However, because we're trying to market to quite a few different equity lists, generally we rotate out 1 week, 2 weeks, but we're actively doing like RVM drops on multiple different lists at any given time. But as far as our cold calling, we're cold calling primarily one list at a time, and we're going to rotate those out generally every week, just to make sure that we're actively kind of spreading our love across the list. And then generally, what we'll do is once we start seeing a decline in leads from that list, or it's hit 6 months or so, we're going to go ahead and check to repull that list from list source and see if there's any, depending on how many new leads are there, we're going to go ahead and pull that list again, suppress it against our old list, and re-get numbers for those new leads, or prospects rather. So I guess to answer that question, I would say at least 6, depending on your market and depending on the list you're doing, at least 6 to 15 different attempts on that person before you give up on them. Some people do 3 attempts. We do 6 attempts up to 15, depending on the lead. And some of the like list stacking type stuff, we have a no-go, no excuses. We will get in contact with somebody to figure out if that person wants to sell that property. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question or not. So cold calls, direct mail, etc. would be, yeah, no. So kind of cold calling and direct mail and all that's part of marketing. But once they switch over from being a prospect to a lead, that's now an acquisitions role. So all your follow-up, for example, is acquisitions. In my business, I don't consider follow-up being a marketing, because they're already in my system. They're already a lead. I do not only pull from list source. I pull equity lists from list source. I pull we rebuild all of our other lists from the county or newspapers, tons of different locations. Also, what do you mean by onboarding and admin? So onboarding would be like if I wanted to hire somebody tomorrow, what's the process of bringing them in my company? What training do they do right away, depending on their job role? What systems do they get access to? Like, do they get, what folders in my Google Drive does my cold callers get access to compared to my acquisitions manager? That's all onboarding. That's bringing somebody into your company. What else we got? My handwriting is so terrible. Looking at it, like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. I get so sloppy with it. Okay. So I'm gonna give it like a few more seconds because there is some latency between your guys' questions and me. So I'm gonna give it a few more seconds, and then I'm gonna hop into kind of explaining the list stacking portion of things and what that means to your business. And then I'm not gonna bring up the actual REISift application, but I might end up. Hey, what up? Stay ready, man. I have heard of ZenCall. We're using call tools really heavily though. I'll check out Zen Call though. But there's certain things in call tools that I like too much to get away with. Yes, there was technically, um, like technically there is one down there. Networking education. That's basically where you put all the resources for yourself and your team members on where they're going to, be educating themselves from, different YouTube channels they should be watching, books they should be reading, events they should, potentially be attending, throughout the year, all that kind of stuff. That's pretty important. Local RIAs they should be attending, so on. Ow, my shoulder just popped like crazy. Yeah. What else we got? I'm actually like stung a little bit. Do you have a book you recommend to start with new team members? Yes, the Go Giver series. I think every team member should start by reading the Go Giver series. Or audiobook. Both of them are good. So once I build and close deals, best advice would be to hire a VA for admin tasks first before focusing on hiring for any of the other three. Yeah. So while you're doing all this stuff, what you want to do is you want to record and document how you've done everything. And as you're doing that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have the education based on what worked for you to get that first deal, outlined, written down and on video for a virtual assistant or someone of the like, and those tasks that were needed as far as like um, a lot of those tasks are going to end up being needed. Now REISift, for a lot of what happens that shares between these two, my VA handled, and REISift will be replacing those. So so some things that my VA will still be doing, still be handling the dispositions process. She will still be pulling the actual lists and getting the lists. But as far as the long task of cleaning out all that data and all that kind of stuff, that will be done by REISift, and we won't have to worry about that except for like a few, lists that just would require a lot of machine learning to take care of with REISift that we don't have implemented. So yeah, I think that teaching someone how to pull those lists for you and teaching them, how to clean the data, or if you have REISift at that point, teaching them how to use REISift to clean the data. And then either skip tracing from REISift or somewhere else. Excuse me, skip tracing from REISift or somewhere else, and then showing them what to do with that data next. What they would do with it next would either be send it to their mail if you're not using REISift for mail, or uploading into whatever your cold calling platform is, or RVM or whatever. Or that could be on your end or your acquisition manager's end. So by pulling the list, what quadrant would that fall under? That would be a combination of admin and marketing. It's really an admin task. I would put it under admin, but it's to fuel the marketing side. In my training for my team, I legit have just a marketing tab, and lists is just underneath of that. So if we want to know how to pull any of our lists, you just go into marketing lists, and then there's a list of all of our lists. And inside of that shows how to clean the lists and everything else, where to put it after you're done with it, and all that good stuff. I don't necessarily break apart that task into one or the other, but it is an admin task that is for the marketing team. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. Any other questions for the quadrants? How do you, so by pulling the list and quadrant, what the owner, so how do you determine and or build your lists? I'm trying to think of, like, are you talking about, like, how do we decide what list we want to get or pull? That's kind of cool. I didn't realize you could retract messages like that. Um, I just decide, I just pull my equity lists, and then any other, there's no determining what list I want to pull. I just pull every single list that I possibly can get. And then I just try them out, and I figure out which ones work best for me and which ones have the best solutions for me to solve. And then the more lists that people are on in my list stacking, the better the lead. And then obviously you have just your straight equity shotgunning. Like, for example, like, I'm gonna have equity lists for everything, because if I get a probate lead, I'm going to stack it against my equity list to make sure that property has equity. Because, like, if there's a property and it's in my county, it's going to be on my equity. If it's not on my equity list, then it's not something I can probably work with. Hopefully it has something else going on, but I'm not going to focus all of my energy on there. I'm going to try and let either my RVM or my cold callers or something like that end up hitting it, but I'm not going to, like, put it on, like, my in-depth sequence. So I think flowing into list stacking might answer quite a few of kind of the more questions that you're having. So I'm gonna go ahead and flow over to that, and then if you have any questions after that, we'll kind of go from there. So what I'm gonna start with is the how I actually get from list to the point where I'm uploading it into a list stacking. Okay. So first of all, if you haven't watched my video on cleaning list source data or something like that, you should definitely do that. That is basically what would end up happening here, and that's what REISift does when you first upload a list. So make sure you watch that. So once that list is pulled, clean, and stored by marketing, then that list goes to what quadrant? So after it's pulled, at this point in my business with REISift, after it's pulled, we just upload it into REISift, and REISift does the cleaning. And then after that's done, we send it for skip tracing. And then after it's sent for skip tracing, we break it down by numbers and no numbers, and anything with numbers gets sent to the marketing team. Anything without numbers also goes to the marketing team, but it's going to go via mail. But that's still, at this point, it's not done in REISift because that's not implemented, but that will be something that's implemented in REISift so that you never have to leave the web app. You could just say, well, you're going to have to export whatever you want to call and upload it into whatever system you want. But as far as the no numbers thing, that's going to get you'll be able to just send mail straight from REISift to track those no numbers. And I'll show you guys kind of a, it's like design template for REISift so you have a better idea what I mean. Man, these yawns, man. Anytime I get in front of a camera, I start yawning. I think it's because I bore myself. But yeah, so let me jump into that, and I'll get into that. That way, you guys can better understand the whole list stacking thing. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, if I can. Okay, so screen share. All right, let me know when you guys can see my screen. And they should have picked up a Red Bull when I was gone. All right, so you guys should see my screen now. I think I can see it, so let me know in the chat box. It'd be much appreciated. Just reminded me, gotta grab mine now. Yeah, I need an energy drink. That's what I need. I need to like 15 Red Bulls right now. That'll either put me in cardiac arrest or wake me up. All right, cool. So you guys see the screen. So this is what a list source list looks like when it comes straight to you. Okay. What I want you guys to notice from this list is that it's not very pretty. All right. Hey, I should have one, man. I should have one. I don't right now, but I should. Actually, that's probably why I'm kind of crashing. I had a Starbucks while I was out earlier looking at that flip that we have. So I want you to notice is you notice how under the owner label name we have a first and last name here, and that first and last name is in fact inside the owner first last name and the owner first name column. Okay, there's also a mailing address in here, which is good. But notice that in this fifth row here, there is not. That's because this is a trust. So what a lot of people do is they'll buy these lists and they won't remove this column. So they'll send this for skip tracing and they won't get no results for column 5 or row number 5. Same thing with 32, same thing with 44, 45, and so on. So what we do and what REISift does is once you import this list into REISift, I'm using list source as an example, but just know that not all lists are the same. For example, on your list from your county, owner label name 1 might just be full name. Okay, but inside of the full name column, they usually embed like company names and everything else. So in REISift, you have to map this column with the right place because this column is how REISift knows to be looking for, the word trust and things like that. So what we do in order to save as much money as possible before we start doing our list stacking and our skip tracing in our mail is we want to make sure that all of this is as clean as possible. So we run it through the sequence, which you can watch the YouTube video on, but it takes a lot of time. I pay my VA to do it hourly, but LLC, trust, and so on. But what I ended up doing after a while is I created just a Python script that handles that for you. And I'll see if I have that. Let me see, do I have that script on here? Yeah, so that's what this is. This was that original script. I can show this to you guys then. What you'll notice is there's a output file here. There's nothing in there right now, but if I were to run this script, it would output, the files that are needed in there. But nevertheless, maybe I'll show that. It's really ugly, so I really don't want to because there's no like pretty user interface or anything, which makes it look like it's cheap. But what I will do is just show you guys kind of the mock-up that we do have on what the UI will look like. But the actual design side is in development still. We're working on a lot of the back end right now, fixing some database stuff and getting ready for the founders launch on the 1st. So nevertheless, we clean all this out. So what this looks like after the fact, after this is all nice and clean, is this right here. So this is the clean records column. Notice how every name is full. All the addresses are complete. And we add our counties in here at the end. This is all the missing data that was in there. So every single one of these records had something, they didn't have names in there. So let's see, this is 745 records that were not proper. Okay, there was W's instead of the full name. There was a T instead and an M instead of the full name. None of this would have a very effective skip tracing results. There's no first name in this column. So you notice 750 records that you would have sent for skip tracing. 750. Some skip tracing is 45 cents a skip trace or 20 cents a skip trace. And you're going to be doing this across multiple lists. That's not including the businesses. So 745 there. What about businesses? Businesses, there was 223 businesses. What we do is my VA comes in here, and every single business that has a property, she manually goes in, she finds the business owners, and she puts their information here, first name, last name. So she does that. Sometimes she can't find it. You see, she couldn't find any information on that one. And then you have trusts. Trusts are a pain in the butt, but you can find their information. As you can see here, there was 57 trusts. So that's somewhere around 1,000 records, 1,000 records nearly. And here's the master sheet. So this is the master sheet. This is basically that same exact list source sheet, except for we clear out all the columns and stuff like that, and we call it the master sheet. So it's a total of 4,000. So literally a fourth of this list is bad. And when I say bad, I mean if not really useful for skip tracing or anything. What you should do is focus on cleaning it out, send this clean data out for skip tracing, and then and mailing, because this is accurate. And I'm going to tell you something that REISift does that takes it even one step further, just to make sure that the data you're sending is accurate. And then the missing data, go back in and populate that. REISift will have the ability for you to, by the click of a button, send all your missing data back through what we call our data funnel, and it'll try and refine the owner's first and last name. Just like skip tracing, it's not going to be 100% because we're still relying on the data to be there. But that will do that. And in the future, we'll implement the ability to potentially find businesses, depending on how quickly or how recent the business was created. Will depend on if we can actually get the information or not. And then obviously trusts are a whole nother beast. You can try and skip trace them, you can try and clean them, but generally depending on the name and how they have the name, you can come up with the property, the owner's name by looking at the deed and stuff like that. But that's for a more deeper, how to investigate trusts kind of video. So that's what our data looks like. Okay. So imagine this concept right here, fully automated by the click of a button. You import this list and it does all of this for you. And then you'll be able to go to a screen and just filter by all your clean data across all, with me, all 10 of my lists, all, 50,000 records or whatever that I have. I can search strictly by my clean data, and then I can send those for skip tracing and then get the data back. Now, let me show you what it looks like once it comes back and it's skip trace. What we do is we go one step further and it breaks it down into 2 more lists. And this is what you guys should do. You can do it manually at first, but this is how you should be treating your data before you start stacking it and sending it for skip tracing and all that stuff. So this is kind of a manual way. So after we send it for skip tracing, it comes back, and this is what it ends up looking like. You have skip tracing. You know what? I think this one's the messed up one. One second. Let's see what it looks like when it loads here. But I think this one, yeah, this one's the messed up one. Let me go to a different one. We'll just use it for now. But essentially, what's going to happen is once it comes back, it's going to have numbers. It's going to, you're going to send, let's just say 1,000 records out for skip tracing. Maybe 800 of those come back with numbers. So what you're going to do is this column here says skip tracing, but really what it is this is all the one with numbers, I think. So we'll see once it loads again here. I think this is one with all numbers. There's not a record in here that doesn't have numbers, I don't think. Yeah, so this one, all these have numbers, but this one, let's see what sheet 1 is. So sheet 1 is potentially no numbers. Yeah, so sheet 1 is no numbers. My VA was obviously messing with something. So we had out of that 4,000 some or 3,000 odd numbers we had back that were clean. You know, almost 2,000 of them came back without numbers. But then let's see how many did. Basically there was like a 50-50 on this one, it looks like. So basically what you want to do is most people would just call this. They wouldn't worry about this other list with no numbers. But you should send the other ones mail, and you should call the ones that you get calls for. You don't have to necessarily, but that's essentially what REISift will do is once you import your list and you send it for skip tracing, what it'll do is it'll say, hey, you have why do you say that, Tavian? Somebody said something about skip tracing. Is that you, JG, but you retracted it? I seen it for a second. So essentially, you know, Tyler, is founders price available up to 228? Yeah, it should be. It should be, yeah. Founders price is available uh, up until the application launches officially, which theoretically should be March 1st, as long as we don't run into any more major hiccups. Really, there hasn't been any major hiccups, but by major hiccups, I mean like a developer like leaving or something. I've learned not to rely on people, so I am always a little bit skeptical. But no, I'm pushing really hard for that March 1st deadline because I already had, it was supposed to be February 1st, okay? And but we had an issue and I ended up having to fire some people and you know, stuff happens. So February is still this month, so yeah, you should be good. But essentially, so the idea is once you break down, you have the skip tracing, you receive numbers and no numbers. You want to be able to know, okay, out of the people that I've skip traced, the people that had no responses, I had no numbers come back, you want to be able to track down those people. Okay, you don't want to just leave those guys behind because you know, although in an equity list, there's probably going to be a couple other investors or quite a few investors that are still mailing that whole list, but you're cutting back your cost a lot, you know, by skip tracing some and then having the non numbers get sent mail. Okay. So now where does the stacking come in this? So we've cleaned all of our data. Okay, you might have 4 or 5 different equity lists that you have uploaded with numbers and without numbers. Okay, so think of that in the back of your mind right now. So you have a bunch of lists with numbers and out numbers. I'm going to switch over to my screen real quick again, or my camera. I'm going to sit in my chair because I don't feel like leaning over. But let me switch over. To my camera. How do I? There we go. Okay. So I'm back on my camera now. Let me know when you guys can see my screen again. All right. So let me move this over. Can you guys still hear me okay if I'm sitting back here? Let's see if this works. Like this. All right. So, all right. Can't do the whole sit down thing. Doesn't work out. All right, cool. So what we're going to do, never mind. I'm going to sit. So imagine you have equity list, right? We're just going to say EQ is equity, okay, because I'm lazy. All right, so you have 1 equity list, 2 equity lists, 3, 4, 5. All right, and over here, we have, where I call them niche lists. Then we have niche lists over here. All right, so this niche list might be probate, tax delinquent, code enforcement, driving for dollars, and so on. That list can go on literally forever, okay? So you've already skip traced all of these. So you have numbers on this side, and you have no numbers down here. All right, you tracking so far? What's going to happen is when you import a list, so now this is coming in this direction. These are coming in this direction, okay? We have a lower side and we have an upper side. All right. Anything that is above is something that has been previously skip traced. Anything that's below is something that does not have numbers or has not previously been skip traced. Once, I'll cover that next. So if you import and you add probate into this pipeline, and it's on one of these lists, and it has phone numbers, it's going to float to the top here. Okay? Because, I don't know if you guys can see that up there. It's not showing on my end yet. It's going to float to the top. So that's because REISift or yourself, if you can figure out a way to do this with Google Sheets, you don't want to have to re-skip trace this probate list twice. So what you're going to do is you're going to import it into REISift, and REISift is going to look at all those records and say, hey, record A, B, C, and D is already in the system, and then it's going to check to see, does this record have phone numbers or doesn't it have phone numbers? If it does have phone numbers, it's good to go, and it's not going to send it for skip tracing anymore, okay? Because you're going to tell it to. It's just going to be a filter option. Same thing with tax delinquent, same thing with code enforcement, same thing with driving for dollars, so on and so forth, okay? Now, if a probate lead comes in, for example, and it came in and either it's not on one of your lists or it hasn't been skip traced before, it's going to go down here. Once it's down here, see, you've previously skip traced this, and REISift knows that you've already sent that record and that it either did or it did not receive phone numbers. If REISift sees that it did not receive phone numbers, but it was previously skip traced, it's going to say on this record that it's going to say that on this record. It's going to automatically add this probate lead as part of that record, and it's not going to tell you to send it for skip tracing. So inside of REISift, there will always be a filter option to filter by no numbers that have not previously been skip traced. So that whenever you upload a list, you'll always be able to, after you upload a list, just go ahead and filter by that list name and by has not previously been skipped and does not have numbers, and you'll be able to just skip trace the results from that filter action, which will allow you to only skip trace only ever skip trace records that have never been skip traced before. And that's just like an endless cycle. So that's the next action step. So remember, we first said we clean the data. Now we said we verify data is, what's been skip traced, what hasn't been skip traced, does it have numbers or not have numbers? And then after that action, you can decide what you add to your mail campaigns or what you send for skip tracing. After that happens, and that happens like this, by the way. It takes a little bit to explain, but that happens like this. That whole sequence, those first two sequences are really quick. And after that's all said and done, now we get to list stacking. Okay, that is the sift of REISift. All right. Now, I'm not trying to straight up always plug REISift here. You can manually do all this. I did it for a while, except for the verification of what's been skip traced and what hasn't been skip traced, because it's just too cumbersome without some sort of scripting or application, which is why I decided to build REISift. It was a app built out of greed. So, you know, it all comes in, we skip trace it out. Now you start stacking them. So if you have, let's just say list number 1 is an absentee. And list number 2 is a owner occupied. These two should never end up stacking with each other. So you should never see, you know, 123 Main Street. You should never see it float to the top with, you know, underneath of it saying absentee, owner occupied, and probate. It's going to be probate and absentee plus one of these other niche lists, you know, or it's going to be one of the other equity lists plus one of those. Like, you'll never really have 2 equity lists at the same time. That's the reason we pull multiple equity lists, and the way that we pull them is so that we don't ever have the same, we don't ever want the same leads or prospects on any one given equity list. Okay, but you're probably going to have maybe 3 of these attached to an absentee. So what would happen is, next to a record, and I'll show you when I bring up the example of the thing, and next to the record, next to this one, it might say lists, and then you might have a 3 on here. So then you click on the person's name and it brings up a pop-up, and in that pop-up you'll be able to see, oh, he's on absentee, probate, and tax delinquent. And he has numbers or he doesn't have numbers, or she. Okay? So what list stacking is, and the reason it's so important, is because let's just say I have 10,000 records. Okay? And out of that 10,000 records, maybe 8,000 of them are equity. Maybe 250 of them are probate. Maybe 500 of them are code enforcements, and so on, up until I reach that 10,000 number. Let's just make it even real quick and just say, let's see, 5, 7, maybe another 250 is driving for dollars, and then another 1,000 is tax delinquent. Okay, are we tracking so far? Any questions as of this point? I know this is like probably a little confusing, especially since you probably can't read my handwriting. But hopefully I'm kind of explaining this process okay enough for the content. All right, if a question pops up, I'll answer, but I'm going to continue going because we're reaching probably what, like an hour and a half, almost just over an hour. Okay, so out of this 10,000, we have, you know, 8,000 that are equity. That's always going to be our majority list, okay? But what we want to know is, we want to know out of these other four, how many of those are on each other plus on an equity. And let's just say out of these 4 and your equity, there is 60 properties that are on all 5. Theoretically speaking, what do you think that means about those 60 properties? It's on one of your equity lists, and it's on a probate list, meaning the person passed away. It's got rotten trailers in the yard, so it's getting code enforcements. You drove past it at some point in your life, and you took a photo of it and you uploaded it in REISift or your list stacking software, and you see. So that means that you've seen visually that it was fucked up. And oh, by the way, they're behind on their taxes. You call them right fucking now. So you're gonna, if they have numbers, okay, if there is numbers in there, which you'll know because you'll click on the record and you'll see if it has numbers or not. You need to get on the fucking phone and you need to call their asses. If you can't get a hold of them, you're gonna fucking hire a private fucking investigator to track that motherfucker down because shit's going on. Shit's going on. Okay, there's five stacking up 5 lists. I mean that's fire. Okay, yeah, they're hot as hell. Okay, so those are the ones that you want, and that's the point of list stacking. That's the power of it, and you can do all of this while saving as much money as possible because the data is being cleaned, and you're only skip tracing what you want to skip trace. And then what you're going to know is, wow, out of 30 out of these 60, I have no numbers for. Oh, and by the way, also, because we track it all, out of the 30 out of 60, you can see inside the system that 15 of those, you're not even mailing. So what does that mean? If from visually, from a dashboard, you can see, wow, 60 of my leads are on every single one of my lists, 30 of those leads have no numbers, and I'm not currently mailing them. Do you think that that is a quick visual, way to tell that your business is failing somewhere? Because there's 15 people that are on 5 of your list and they don't have phone numbers and you're not mailing them. That's a fucking no-go because you should find out where to send mail and you should be mailing them somehow. That is the whole reason why I have built REISift and why it's being built like it is. Not every single one of these features are going to be at launch because there's a lot that we have to make sure that we're implementing correctly, and that's why we're taking baby steps from founders launch and on. But you can do all this manually. It just takes a shit ton of work. And you're still going to have to hire a developer to do some sort of programming and visual basics for you. Is there any limit to how many leads? Actually, no. So I've done a market analysis, of the different other list stacking softwares out there, and as of right now, for founders and on, there is no limit because we're using we use Dropbox for our data storage, okay? And with Dropbox as our data storage, we don't have to worry about data limits. We can store as much in there as we want for a certain price a month. And so as of right now, we do not plan on charging, let's just say you had 100,000 records or 200,000 records. We don't plan on charging any different pricing based on that. So whether you're enterprise or not enterprise, what we will integrate different charges for is if you want to have different logins underneath one business account for your teammates, that would be a different license. So you'd have to have another account, but that's like in the future. For now, you just share them all. It is a must-have. It is going to be a must-have. It's going to change the way I think a lot of people do business. Even if it's just uploading the list and just doing the stacking portion, because you could clean your data by yourself if you wanted to. Some of your lists, like driving for dollar lists, you don't even have to clean them because you've manually made them yourself. But you want to stack them, so you still upload it. And REISift, after you get done, after founders access, what's going to happen is this sifting portion, that very first portion I talked about, that's going to end up being $45 because some people would just want that and they can just pay for that if that's all they want. If they want just the stacking feature, that's $75. And then if you want both of them, it's $95. Or right now for founders access, it's $47. Up until we start launching, then it will go to its regular pricing. Now, some things I did not mention. Okay. Some things I didn't mention is that REISift will automatically give you a couple of lists for free. And what those 2 lists are, if you want to consider them lists, I do. One of them is vacancy. And the other one is address validation. Address validation is not necessarily a list, but what you can do if it's something you want to do is after you import all your data, you can send all your data through address validation. And what that will do is it will run your it'll run all your addresses, your mailing addresses, in accordance with the USPS and Google Maps to verify, to make sure that that address is structured how it needs to be in order to actually make it to its destination. So you could theoretically use that before you skip trace, or all the ones that come back with no numbers, you could go ahead and run it through address validation just to make sure that all those ones that you're about to mail are actually being sent, and those addresses are actually good, so that you don't get a lot of return mail. That's my biggest thing. What started this whole shit was the fact that I received 200 postcards back a week. That's what started this whole mess. And it pissed me off because I seen all my money going down the drain. So address validation will be there. And then once a month, we'll do vacancy checking to check if any of these properties are vacant, which would mean like out of these 60 that are on 5 of the list, if you filter by vacancy, you might have 10 of them that are also vacant. So those are like freaking, you'd be all over the place. You'd be like, I got to get in there right now. I got to find out where this is at. A lot of times those types of properties, it deals with deceased and no family members found, and it's just a pain. But the painful ones are always like the best ones. So there'll be webinars and training initially while there's founders access. It'll be weekly training and webinars just to get feedback, and you guys are going to have lists that we didn't account for because your data is going to be way different than potentially some of the lists that we've tested against. So we're going to take all that feedback and take all that input, continue to improve the sifting feature to make that as beautiful as possible. And we'll do weekly webinars to take all that in and adjust everything. And then once we feel as though the sifting portion and the stacking portion are as good as to where we want it to be without, future plans, because there's a lot of plans in the future to integrate, for example, a technology called Elastic. What Elastic does is Elastic takes all the data in your database and it makes it flat like this. Imagine you're looking at it from a level field, so that if you wanted to look at this record over here, you don't have to dig down here. You can just come over here and grab it. So that's Elastic, and we'll be implementing that technology, but that will be after we already have the database and the sifting feature and everything how we want it to be. After the sifting and all that stuff's how we want it to be, skip tracing will be implemented next, and then mail fulfillment. So that's kind of like have like a 3-month kind of like a development plan after launch for that. And that's kind of why founders get that big discount, is because, you guys are in the very beginning and you're helping out a lot. And we think that, you should have that. In addition to that, there will also be affiliates. So like everybody who enters into REISift is an affiliate with us, and you'll have an affiliate link. And if you bring anybody into the app, then you'll get a percentage monthly off of that that person who you bring in. Because I believe strongly that if you're going to invest your money into something, you should always have the opportunity to get something out of it. So you could end up bringing people into the app and it end up paying for your monthly app. I do have list source, referrals in the links in my other videos. They are in there. I will say that there's no such thing as a list source, like 3 cents list source without paying something, because list source is generally really expensive. But if you follow one of the links in one of my other YouTube videos for list source at 3 cents, then you'll be taken to get list source for 3 cents a record, but it costs $97 a month. But keeping in mind, and I have a video for this, if you ever downloaded any of my free like list source cheat sheets, the video after you like put in your email and have that sheet sent to you is a video of me explaining, why 3 cents and even at $97 a month is like a killer deal for list source data. Because even if you buy 1,000 records at the normal price, you still pay for that $97, you still end up saving, I think it's like $150 or something stupid. Even if you're paying $97 a month and pulling 1,000 records a month, you're still saving like $150 a month if you didn't have the 3 cents code, which is like crazy. So yeah, that is something there that you can get as well. Yeah, so that's list stacking, and that's like REISift. Let me show you guys real quick kind of like what the application will kind of look like from the dashboard. Don't take me by 100% on this. You know, the design, I just paid. I don't want to start crying on the camera on how much I just paid for, you know, the designer to get his next installment for the design. I'll show you kind of what my sorry ass did for my mock-up to give my designer a good idea of the direction we wanted to go with the web app as far as the dashboard and everything else is concerned. So you guys have a better idea kind of what that dashboard is and what I mean by displaying data to you. And as you guys might, I don't know, potentially be able to tell, like I'm really passionate about this application. Like at this point, I'm ready to go bankrupt and you know, lose everything for this web app because it's just something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So, all right. So this is kind of like what the sign up will look like, more or less. Oh wait, you guys can't see. Hold on. This one, screen share. Right screen share. Let me know when you guys can see that. All right. So, all right. So this is kind of like, this isn't like I said 100%, but this is kind of like REISift, the login page. This is like when you sign up and register, it's a 4-step process. You fill out your information, then you fill out your company information, then you choose your package, and then you put in your payment information. Anybody who's signing up right now will go to what's actually a ClickFunnels landing page to handle payments and kind of show you guys what it's about. And anybody who signed up currently, what we'll do is we'll import all your accounts into the database. And then when you first sign up, you will actually be prompted to basically fill out this information and complete your profile. You know, the forgot password dealio, and then moving down, you know, the kind of the index page or the dashboard. You have, you know, the member dashboard, a video, kind of a couple things about it. Take a look inside the example, our pricing plans that aren't actually accurate data right there. And then a contact us form. So this is kind of like something that I made to kind of advise my designer kind of the direction to go. It looks like shit, but that's basically kind of the flow of the homepage. Not that you guys really care about that. What you guys really care about is probably more of this right here. So what you can see here, if you can read that, I don't know if you can, essentially what it's going to be is, you know, you got a left-hand bar over here. You're going to be able to have the dashboard, the sifting tab, which is essentially your filtering tab. All these icons will change, you know, all the sifting tabs, all the data you've ever imported, any, you know, lists that you filtered and then exported, and then your settings and whatnot. This is what I was talking about when I talk about like the total amount of records you have, how many of those records have been skip traced, how many of those records have been sent for mail, how many of those, you know, records that were sent for mail were records with phone numbers or records without phone numbers, and so on. So we break down that data. Then we show what's upcoming in development and what our most recent webinar is. This is just a standard page here. This is what uploading looks like. You know, you just drag and drop your, you know, your file in there, you upload it, and then you map the CSV. And this is really similar to kind of how the mapping of your data goes. We are implementing a system called Dragula, which if you guys have ever used like REI Rail or REI Rail, that's a technology that they're also using. It's a Node Angular or rather JavaScript Angular Node you know, I guess tool. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to do that whole, you know, grab it and drag it over kind of thing. But what we do that's different is notice how this record over here has first name, but there's nothing here. And then this record here has last name, but there is data here. So what we do when you first upload that CSV, we automatically parse through your data and how much to add member if you're a founder. What do you mean by add member? Like someone later on? What it did is it automatically recognized last name and it re-added him in here. So once you have first name here, you're going to grab that you know, because we didn't recognize it at the top right now, it says, hey, we attempted to map what we could. Can you finish the rest? And then you would grab first name and go ahead and throw it in there. And then you'd upload the CSV and it would do the whole cleansing and all that kind of stuff of your data, or sifting, I should call it. All right. Now this is kind of like an example. This is not what it'll actually look like, but I'm not smart enough to come up with all the designs, but this is basically how it will be for the whole, you know, filtering, you know. So let's just say, for example, you have 123 Main Street, 123 Main Street, and pretend these are different addresses here. You would see, oh, okay, this record is on one list. It has been skip traced. No, it has not been sent to mail. This record here was on 3 lists. It has been skip traced and it is on mail. If it was skip traced and it had no phone numbers come back, then this would be like a yellow Y, meaning it came back with no records. And then if it wasn't skip traced, it would have a red N, you know, and then there'll be some more information over here, and then your filtering and all that stuff will be up here. But this just kind of gives you a quick idea of what it looks like. And then once you click on, like if I clicked on my name here, it's not going to happen here because it's not real. But if I click on my name here, it would pop up, you know, with all that record information. On the bottom, it would show, okay, this is the 3 lists that it is on. And then on the dashboard here, it'll actually, right in this kind of section here, there's actually going to be a breakdown with, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, depending on how many lists you have imported. And it'll say, okay, out of 10,000 records, 9,050 of them are only on one list, and so on. And it'll break that down like right here. And then vacancy check is that whole vacancy check. Every once a month, it does that whole vacancy check to see what's going on. And when it's happening, it says it's in progress. And when it's completed, it'll say it's completed and have a date down here. And then if it's completed, it'll say next one is on this date or whatever. Now, earlier somebody asked about what happens, like, is there a limit to how much data you can upload? The answer to that is no. But USPS and a couple of these people that we use in order to do the vacancy checking and the checking of an accurate list, an accurate record, so the address validation, some of those cost money for a certain amount of, you know, if you go over, for example, if you send over 10,000 requests in 1 month, they might charge you so much per record. So depending on how that ends up unfolding, we may end up having to charge one-time fees a month, depending on if you want or don't want to be, like if you want vacancy check, for example, we might have to say, okay, well then, because you have this many records, we need to charge you, you know, $15 to have that vacancy check happen if you want that. Or something like that. We don't 100% know that answer yet. As of right now, Vacancy Check is a free feature included. It's the data validation that we're unsure about. The data validation is the one that might end up, Google's API costs money, and so does USPS's on that after a certain amount. So until we can get a accurate idea of how much data people are uploading, we just don't quite have that answer yet. And that's primarily for the founders, because of the fact that the founders are getting the app at such a lower price. You know, it might end up doing that. So we're trying to work through that. At a certain point, once we have so many users, it's not going to matter. But yeah, that is the answer to that. So let me go ahead and click this off. And I'll answer some questions here and summarize with any other questions that you guys might have as far as structuring your business, what, you know, doing list stacking, how you can do it effectively now. Like I said, you can use Google Sheets right now. You can, let's see, is it going to come back to me? Cool. You can use Google Sheets right now to do it. You can, you know, you can do lots of different things. I'm just trying to show me over here and you guys on this screen. And let me read what you got going on. Clean and minimalistic look. Yeah, that's kind of the point. It's going to be clean and minimalistic. We're going to have tones of red, blue, and white, aka red, white, and blue. Just saying. JG, what else? How much to add a member? Okay, earlier you said something about adding members / profile. I'm guessing someone that requires another login VA. No, what I'm talking about there is if like if you have a company of let's just say 15 people, and five of those people are working in like different markets, you know what I mean? Then that's going to break down, and you'll probably need a different user license if you want to create a company one. Okay, if you're going to create a company one, then we'll create a company, and you'll always have the ability to add another user, because sometimes some companies want to give their VA their own login, and not have it underneath yours. We haven't quite figured all that out yet. As of right now, you just share your login and anybody will have access to it. Just like, I mean, CallRail is kind of the same way, but you just add a user. It doesn't charge you any extra, but it might be that you have so many users. We haven't quite thought, about that exactly this far ahead. But yeah. So any other questions, anything I can help out with? We're at about an hour and a half. And I want to make sure you guys leave here understanding everything, that I've kind of went through as far as the quadrants, as far as, the list stacking. So throw any immediate questions that you have, at me. There's really like 2 or 3 of you that are actually sending stuff across, but there's, more than that in this right now. So please, if you have any questions at all, whether you're seasoned or not, maybe something that I do might help you in your business, and I'd like to help you out if I can. So shoot the questions my way. I'll do my best to answer them, and we'll get rocking and rolling on this. End this up, and I'll go drink some Red Bull and play Apex Legends until like 7 in the morning. Just kidding, not kidding. Hey, William, I appreciate you joining No Excuses REI. You're a baller if you're in here. Hopefully you don't just join it and then not actually join the course, because that's kind of silly. But if you end up joining the course too, I appreciate you, man. Hopefully you enjoy the content, and hopefully I can help you get that first deal or that next few deals. What up, Vertus? What's going on? Accumulate, but what is the gist of the list stacking? Oh man, so the gist of list stacking is going back and looking at this board is like terrible, because I'm like all over the place when I'm writing shit down. Man, I don't even know how to start. But the gist of list stacking is, if you have multiple equity lists in here, okay, and you have multiple niche lists, the idea is, out of say the 10,000 records that you have in your system, say 8,000 of them are equity, 250 are probate, 500 are code enforcement, 250 of them are driving for dollars, and 1,000 of them are tax delinquent. You want to see how many of these 4 are also on your equity list. And I gave the example, what if 60 of your records are on at least 5 of these lists? So at least all of your lists, at least 60 records are on there. You're going to really hammer those records. So what if out of those 60, you can't get phone numbers for half of them, so you have 30 that have no numbers, right? What are you going to do with those ones, right? And then if out of those 30 that have no numbers, if you're only sending 15 of them that have mail, then you're really going to want to fix whatever you have going on in your business. Now, if there's a vacancy checking and we have vacancy checking implemented into that as well, and what if 10 of those records are also vacant? Okay, that means you really want to hit those 10 really hard, because those ones are vacant. They have a lot of stuff going wrong with them, and you want to find out who the hell they are until you get an absolute go dig a hole for yourself and leave me alone type of answer. Sometimes some of these properties that are like that are just tied up in a bunch of litigation, foreclosure processes, and there's just nothing you can really do except for wait until the auction, in which case most likely someone's going to come in and it's kind of not even worth your time. But there's a lot of other stuff and a lot of other moving parts. I apologize. It'd be way too much to go back through all of it, but I highly recommend that you start from the beginning of this and work yourself, through the replay of this, because I promise you it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to help you out. But there's like the cleaning of your data, and there's a whole process before you start doing list stacking. Oh God. All right, what else I got? Is the live going to stay public or no? Yes, it is. It's going to stay public, 100%. I came in late. Let's see. I got a sample file from tax delinquent assessor. Will I be able to upload straight into REISift or sheet then sift? So it depends on how that data comes back to you, JG. That's when I say some of these lists, especially like tax delinquent, and probate and code enforcements, sometimes they come really weird. Sometimes they don't even come in Excel, but if it comes in a CSV or an Excel document, you can upload it. If it comes in a PDF document, you're going to have to manually convert it over from PDF into a CSV or something, something even generic, and that way you can map those fields over and get that thing sifted. The biggest, most important thing about REISift, if you're trying to sift out trusts, missing data, and all that stuff, is that if you have a full name column, and that whatever column inside your sheet is a mixture of, companies, no companies, and so on, that's the one that's going to do the sifting. So if you end up, for example, mapping a column and you don't include the column that has the trust in it, then we're not going to know that that row is a trust, because we have nothing telling us that it is. So thinking back to that previous list I showed, on the left-hand side, there was trust, there was companies, and anytime there was a trust or a company, there was no first name or last name. If there's no first name or last name, either way, we're going to consider that missing data. But the problem is that if you have 100 trusts and we don't know that it's a trust and we consider it missing data, if you ever go back to repopulate and send that through our data funnel, you're going to get less results. So you're going to want to make sure that that's imported properly, and the training will show you that. Once we have our very first webinar, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, as long as it's a CSV, you're good to go. You have to upload as CSV, but you'll be able to export as XLS. It is basically pointing out the records that have the most of the criteria that you are targeting. Exactly. It's exactly that. It's the most. It is finding the gold inside your data. But there's, as far as the list stacking, that's what list stacking is. REISift as an application as a whole is much more than that, because of the sifting portion and because of the way that we can allow you to watch your leads go from into your system, skip traced, and then mailed, and so on. Will the sifting and stacking features be 2 different prices? So after the founders is over, then both together would be $95 a month. And then if you're deciding to only buy one or the other, then one will be $45 and the other will be $75. Yeah, but also a price for both. Honestly, for the price for both, you might as well get both of them, but I wanted to have the feature otherwise. Initially, there's not going to really be an option to have a price separated, because I have to figure out from a coding perspective how to restrict access based off of content. And that's something I'm working out with my developer. Because initially, anyway, only founders are going to have access anyway. So, and that's at $47 a month for everything. Of course, skip tracing and mailing and all that stuff is per record. I can't send 10,000 records for $47 a month. I wish I would be the richest person in the world right now. Okay. Any other questions I can answer or assist with? Like say 10-4, thank you so much for your time. Definitely set purchase account. Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming in here and asking questions and being a part of what I got going on. I really appreciate it. Because otherwise this last hour and a half, the 2 hours would have been really boring if I didn't have people in here. I was really worried at first. Not gonna lie. What is the best way to structure a deal with a seller when they need more time to stay on the property to protect your buyers, say 30 days? If you already have a buyer, then just let them know, hey, this person needs a little bit more time. Or if the person needs a little bit more time, let them know, hey, I already got money invested in this. If you're going to have to stay longer than 30 days that we agreed upon, maybe they end up taking a price reduction for that. But otherwise just work it out with your buyer and go from there. Generally, longer is okay as long as it's not too long. But other than that, push their asses out. Figure out why they can't move out and then just solve that solution. We had that happen before, and the person needed a rental. So what did we do? We went and found a rental, and then we gave her $3,000 to move all of her shit and get into the rental, and we had it set up to where they gave that money to us back after we closed.
What is going on, guys?
Repair cost calculator didn't work. Let me give it a try now. One moment. Okay. Is there any paperwork that needs to be in place? You need to redo your assignment contract, or you need to redo your contract because your title company is going to need to update on closing anyway. Now when you close is the buyer and seller at the closing? No, not at all. In fact, I don't attend closings. I just go pick up my paycheck. See you later, JG. Appreciate you. Any other questions? We have about another 3-4 minutes. Slam in some questions. I'll answer them. But I'm going to find this. See if this document is able to be downloaded. He's saying that it's not available for download. Let's see. How to calculate repair costs. He's saying that this is not download. I feel like someone would have told me that it's not downloadable by now. Hey, no problem, man. No problem at all. Let me see. Repair cost calculator. He might be right. Bitly repairs calculator. That is not working. Let's see. So are the buyer and the seller at the closing together, or they come at separate times? So the title company will set different times for them to come to closing. They will not come together. Oh, I know what happened. Damn it. Okay, I know what happened. Shoot. Okay, so I gotta fix that. How many people on your list do you think have already been contacted by other wholesalers? I have no idea. Honestly, Phil, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm sure a decent bit. Depending on the list. Yeah, maybe quite a bit. I've stepped on another wholesaler's toe maybe once or twice. We're targeting the same person. That's just because that person was seeking out wholesalers, not because we ran across them through our list. What else? Any other questions? just ask them about their process and ask them if they're familiar with assignments. But I know they will be because I've closed with them before. If you have specific questions on that, just hit me up on my DM. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this just because I don't. I want to try and keep a decent bit of the content focused on kind of the topic inside of the title. But if you guys have any further questions about anything, feel free to hit me up on my Instagram DM, Tyler Austin Original. If you're not following me on Instagram, and I'll help you out the best that I can. I appreciate you guys so much. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button and the thumbs up or all those things, and make sure you hit the bell on my YouTube channel so you see whenever I come out with other videos and whatnot. So thanks so much, guys. I'm gonna go get myself something to boost up some energy because I still got quite a few things to do tonight. So thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you, and be sure to share it and to someone that you think might need the content. So see you, man. Yep, see you definitely, man. See you Monday. Peace out, guys. If I can figure out how to end this, I don't even know how to end this. Let's see. There we go. All right, guys. Thanks so much.